Chapter 299, There's More After All's Sold Out. Translator, Rever Editor, Kurisu. Even if Zhu Wuju did not speak of inspecting the wares, how could the crowd have dared to overlook it? 10 origin power crystals were demanded. 10! After all, those peculiar crystals that held origin power within were in truth commonplace goods forged in vast quantities. Otherwise, with the market's hunger, they would have long since been drained dry, and it would have been impossible for such great heaps of them to appear. There existed a standard for the size of origin crystals. They were no larger than a finger. Moreover, rather than a flat piece, they were more like slender sticks. Yet to fill this tiny origin power crystal, a cultivator of the spiritual ocean tier had to expend a full month's time. This was the proper pace, provided that a spiritual ocean tier cultivator exhausted all their origin power and restored it through meditation, and not by swallowing medicinal pills. Otherwise, it would be squandering a family's fortune, for medicinal pills were exceedingly costly as well. Even spiritual ocean tier cultivators could only refine 12 pieces in a year, so this thing was incomparably precious, and it could mirror the value of 100-year ginseng and Ganoderma. One after another, people handed over origin power crystals to receive a stalk of ginseng or Ganoderma, then hurriedly scrutinized it with care. If they themselves lacked discernment, they dragged others at their side to appraise it, and all of them revealed faces brimming with delight. It truly was 100 years old. I still want to buy a stalk. I have money. I also want to buy 3 stalks. After confirming that the ginseng and Ganoderma Zhu Wuju sold were genuine, everyone surged with excitement, brandishing their origin power crystals and barging in like local tyrants. These origin power crystals were in fact bestowed by their clans or forces for emergencies. After all, the currency that flowed through this land was origin power crystal, while silver was used only among ordinary folk. In the 9 nations of the desolate north, spiritual ocean tier warriors were certainly the very pinnacle. How could they possibly sit about all day refining and condensing origin power crystals? Thus, even the 8 great clans could not produce that many origin power crystals, let alone common households. Therefore, those who tossed out 10 origin crystals at a time were simply extravagant to the point of willfulness. Guang Yuan shook his head again and again as he watched, then said, "If anyone dared squander this lord's origin crystals like this lord would personally beat them to death." Ling Han let out a sigh. "You speak as though you've refined origin power crystals before." "Pah, this lord doesn't even have time to cultivate, so how could I possibly waste origin power to do such a thing?" Guang Yuan immediately spat out, shameless and utterly unconcerned with his own image. It was reasonable. Now that Ling Han was an Earth-grade alchemist, Guang Yuan's standing was countless times lower than Ling Han's, so Guang Yuan naturally showed his unruly nature. There was absolutely no need for him to maintain the airs of a senior or a mighty expert. Everyone chuckled under their breath. Guang Yuan might be coarse, yet he was also an amusing fellow. All were in disorderly throngs around Zhu Wuju, and the scene was fervently bustling. Some lacked 10 origin crystals on their person, so they haggled with Zhu Wuju, while others, wealthier and more overbearing, declared they were willing to add to the price to seize priority in purchasing, fearing the ginseng and Ganoderma would be sold out. Cheng Feijun's expression sank darker and darker. The martial arts tea party he hosted was meant to sift out talents for Luo Jifeng to choose, not to let Ling Han peddle wares. He could not help but rise and remind everyone that it was about time to continue the sparring. Yet no one paid him any heed. They had already seen the strength of several others earlier, and knew there was no chance for most of them to seize first place. Since there was only a single prize for the number 1, why not instead focus on a treasure right before their eyes? Cheng Feijun nearly cursed aloud. The tea party was held by him, and he was a high-level black-grade alchemist. How dare a pack of mere gushing spring-tier martial artists refuse him face? But Ling Han was present, so as a high-level black-grade alchemist, he truly was nothing remarkable. So what if they refused him face? There was still Master Ling, was there not? This damned Ling Han, was he born solely to oppose him? Cheng Feijun slumped back into his seat, his gaze seething with wrath. He even began to hate Luo Jifeng now. That old man claimed he would dispose of Ling Han, yet after so many days he had done nothing at all, allowing Ling Han to roam about wildly and perfectly fine. After several more hours, Ju finally sold an entire wicker basketful of spirit medicine, yet there were still many waving their origin power crystals, yearning to buy more. He glanced at Ling Han, and upon seeing Ling Han nod, he then said, "Those friends who haven't bought any, do not worry. You can find me later at the inn's 7th courtyard. There will be large amounts of ginseng and Ganoderma provided, 100-year-old ones. I promise everyone will be satisfied." Only upon hearing this were those who had not bought any willing to depart. However, everyone was shaken. After a wicker basketful of spirit medicine was sold, there was still more. This was 100-year-old ginseng and Ganoderma they spoke of, not some random cabbage. Ordinary people possessed but a 100-year lifespan. And now, deep within the mountains, medicine harvesters swarmed everywhere. So spirit medicines were growing fewer and fewer. One would already be grateful to occasionally gather a single stalk of 100-year ginseng. Yet now a whole basketful had been sold to them, and there was still more. Had they unearthed some ancient medicinal garden? Cheng Feijun's expression was like shifting skies, filled with fierce greed. He thought that Ling Han must have discovered an ancient medicinal garden. Obtaining such a place, along with a Grandmaster Alchemist's inheritance, would explain both his supply of spirit medicine and his ability to become an Earth-grade alchemist at such a young age. If he could obtain it, in an instant, his heart blazed with an endless desire, driving him to take risks out of desperation. Guang Yuan saw it all and said to Ling Han, "Ling Han, that brat has set his killing intent upon you." Ling Han gave a light laugh and said, "No matter, merely a clown. I originally could not be bothered, but since he seeks death, then I shall send him on his way. I'll leave it to old brother Guang." Pu Guangyuan instantly sprayed spit and said weakly, "That fellow is still a high-level black-grade alchemist. If I kill him, then alchemists across the world will see me as the most hated man." "Just do it cleanly." "He is merely at the 7th layer of the gushing spring tier, and with old brother Guang's cultivation at the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, you can certainly suppress him with one hand, with neither gods nor ghosts finding out." Ling Han smiled. Guang Yuan received the complete large sun heaven heart scroll, and with Ling Han's provision of medicinal pills, his cultivation met a small surge. Reaching the peak of the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, something unbelievable even to himself. "Fine, leave this man to me," Guang Yuan said through clenched teeth. He had received so many benefits from Ling Han, yet had not truly done anything for him, and this made him feel obliged to act. Ling Han nodded. He truly did not care for Cheng Feijun. As for Luo Jifeng, who nearly blinded his eyes, he had not gone to peak again, so he did not deeply understand this person. That old man's presence gave him a familiar feeling, yet he could not quite place his finger on it. Chapter 300. An elite cultivator suddenly appears. Translator, Reveditor, Kurisu. The trade of ginseng had at last drawn to a close. The martial arts tea gathering naturally pressed on, yet quite a few hearts were still hooked upon that 100-year ginseng and Ganoderma. Their faces clearly showed distraction, and the fervor on the grounds was dulled by no small measure. Thankfully, Lian Xiuju, Bai Yu Quan, and the others once more stepped forth to exchange blows. Their splendid displays salvaged a portion of the atmosphere, drawing waves of cheers from the crowd, especially when the martial folk of one's own homeland witnessed their nation's peerless genius unfurling invincible might, and suppressing the talents of other lands. Their excitement turned near hysterical. In the end, 8 strongest of a single nation each stood out: Lian Xiuju, Hua Gaoyi, Bai Yu Quan, Yu Xinghuo, Zhong Heguang, Yu Shuiyun, Yuan Lianshan, and Kanya. Ju Wuju, after all, was still somewhat raw with cultivation only at the 5th layer of the gushing spring tier. The sole thing he could truly lean on was the silver moon body, while his own martial talent barely counted as passable. At present, he could form only 2 flashes of sword chi, and he still lagged an entire segment away from the title of a king. It so happened that among the 9 nations of the desolate north, each had one seated among the strongest, save for Cloud Country, leaving all its martial folk flushed with embarrassment, Yet there was no other way, for in the martial world, one speaks with strength. Ling Han, if you step onto the field, you alone can defeat all 8 of them. Lu Yutong said with a sullen face. The number 1 of the desolate north ought to be the man she fancied. That's right. On this matter, Li Xichan naturally stood shoulder to shoulder with Lu Yutong. Hu Niu patted her chest and declared, Niu will fight for Ling Han and seize first place. As she spoke, she sprang onto the arena, instantly making Kan Yi's face go pale. He had suffered at the little girl's hands before. Within the gushing spring tier, none could cope with her speed. Back then, even Yan Tianzhao had taken great losses, forced to unleash an ultimate move and only winning by relying on his strange threads to bind the little girl. However, at that time, he had caught the little girl unprepared. Hu Niu's strength had clearly risen after that affair, for she was now at the 5th layer of the gushing spring tier. If they fought again, the outcome would be exceedingly difficult to predict. Whether it was Ling Han or Hu Niu, if these 2 monsters entered the fray, they would certainly be invincible among gushing spring tier warriors, and even low-level spiritual ocean tier opponents would only be swept away. Ling Han threw back his head and laughed. Niu, don't go frightening little... Can't you see his face has turned completely pale? Everyone glanced over, and after confirming it, they could not help but laugh one after another. It truly was rare for this young man, who was always indifferent to people, to lose his composure. Hu Niu was so small and had absolutely no qualms about what she did. Even Kan Yi would have a headache. Cheng Fei-jun invited Kan Yi and the other 7 to step up as he arranged their opponents. It just so happened that 4 would advance from 8, and 2 would advance from 4. And at last, the strongest would be decided, bringing the day's martial tea gathering to its consummation. The first will definitely be our fire country's Lian Shuju. Bullsh! Before our rock country's Hua Gaoyi, everyone else is trash. Shoo! 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 With our wind country's Baiyu Quan here, who could endure even a single exchange? Personal glory had already been lifted to the level of nations. Everyone bolstered the morale of the geniuses from their own country, except Cloud Country, where no one had come out on top. This made their expressions dreadful. Lu Yutong and Li Xichan were both ill at ease. The one who ought to stand in the limelight was Ling Han, and if he entered the fight, who would be his match? The quarterfinals should originally have been carried out one by one, but Zhu Wuju had started hawking goods in the midst of the gathering. This delayed everything by a great deal, and now the 4 matches had to be held together. Ping, ping, pang, pang. The 8 split into 4 groups and immediately began to clash. The scene was ferociously intense, drawing everyone's attention at once, making them cry out from time to time and voice acclaim for this one's or that one's performance. This trip truly had not been for nothing, being able to witness such splendid bouts. Perhaps some arrogant and conceited youngsters would shed their haughtiness, coming to realize that it was not only their own country that harbored geniuses one could only look up to. Even other lands had them too. Ha ha ha! The mole crickets of the desolate north dare to hold a martial tea gathering, absurdly prattling about martial arts. Truly laughable. A sharp voice rang out as a youngster strode in with broad steps, his face filled with disdain. Who is it? Everyone turned their heads. Even Kan Yi and the other 7 halted their battles. This person had mocked the desolate north, striking a blow at all the people of the 9 countries. The white-clothed youth was exceedingly handsome, and his complexion was delicate, giving others the urge to throw a punch at him. He was quite gifted at drawing aggro. At his waist hung 2 swords, which was rather rare. He strode up and said, The monkeys of the desolate north, return to where you came from. The north region is not a place you may tread. Who are you? What does it have to do with you? Someone shouted. The white-clothed youth laughed arrogantly and said, I forgot to introduce myself. Sigh. Announcing my name before you mole crickets is simply a humiliation for I, Bao Xinran. Whatever, I think I won't announce my name. Pooh. Many people instantly burst into laughter. You said you wouldn't announce your name, but you already announced it. Is your head all right? The one surnamed Bao. Get lost. Someone snorted. Judging from Bao Xinran's tone, he ought to belong to a force in the north region. For the desolate north, the North region was the true holy land of martial arts. Thus, even if Bao Xinran spoke rudely, everyone chose to tolerate him somewhat. Bao Xinran picked at his ear and said, "Who told me to get lost just now? Come out and let me see. See if I won't smash all your teeth to pieces." So what if I said it? A tall and sturdy youth stepped forward, his back like a tiger's and waist like a bear's, his height nearing 2 meters. His skin dark, he looked like a wild bear. Peng! Everyone's vision blurred. They only saw Bao Xinran vanish from his spot as a fist smashed into the wild bear's face, sending him flying outright. That tall and sturdy youth struggled to rise, but halfway, his whole head actually exploded. The headless body collapsed again at once, blood spilling across the ground. In that instant, the entire place fell silent. Yet it lasted only an instant before the crowd erupted in fury, wanting to flay Bao Xinran and swallow him alive. "You're strong, and so you've won, but was there any need to kill?" "Oops, I struck too hard. I'd planned only to knock out all his teeth. But whatever, those who insult me deserve death," Bao Xinran said indifferently, then picked at his ear again. "Which Dreg still wants to fight?" Everyone fell silent. Though that man had only been at the element gathering tier, Bao Xinran's strike was utterly shocking, for most of the gushing spring tier warriors present could not even follow the attack with their eyes. If they personally faced it, then it would likely bode more ill than well. Moreover, this person's hand was ruthless, and when one could not be sure of victory, there truly was no one who dared rashly step onto the arena to fight him. Brother Bao, this humble one has come to experience it himself. Zhonghe Guang strode down onto the field with great steps. "Oh, so just you 8 were contending over the title of strongest prodigy of the younger generation?" I'm dying of laughter. Mere several mole crickets actually daring to harbor the delusion of being called first in whatever, simply unaware of what is truly called number one, Bao Xinran said coldly, ridiculing without the slightest restraint. "Sir, have you had enough?" Zhonghe Guang was greatly enraged, unhooking the whip coiled at his waist. Bao Xinran picked at his ear, blew a breath across his fingertip, and said, "How about this? I'll use one finger. If I can't kill you in 3 moves, then I'll kneel on the ground and call you Grandpa." Arrogant. Truly, too arrogant. Using one finger to face one of the 8 great prodigies of the desolate north, and moreover, killing him within 3 moves? He looked down on them to the utmost, and not to mention whether he could win or not, killing at every turn was simply not taking the 9 nations of the desolate north seriously, was it?